This year in FPL, we have so many different options ranging from all kinds of prices, especially in the defence. A lot of people are confused on what are the best budget defenders and as well as what are the best premium defenders to go for in your FPL teams ahead of game week 1. We're going to be covering all that in this video. So if you're an FPL fan, do hit that subscribe button. We do daily FPL content, so do hit that subscribe button. So you're best prepared for the new season. This is definitely the channel to subscribe to. And as well, if you enjoy the video, do go on to drop a like as well. It'd be very greatly appreciated. So the first defender I wanted to talk about at 4 million, we've got a couple of different options here, which I do think are all very good in their own right. The first one is Gabriel Gudmundsson of Leeds. Now, he's a new signing from Leeds. He's just come in as a new left-back. Now, if you're not aware, Leeds had Junior Firpo as their left-back last season in the Championship, and they played a very, very attacking style, Leeds did, which was very entertaining to watch, where their fullbacks would absolutely bomb on. You got Firpo, got a lot of goal contributions last season. Jayden Bogle the same at the other side. They've now signed this Gudmundsson over from the French league from Lille, and we're expecting him to be Leeds' first choice at left-back going into the new season right now. Now, he's not absolutely guaranteed to start or anything like that, so I'm not going to say, you know, you have to have him in your teams or anything like that. But it's someone to definitely keep an eye on over pre-season. He scored 2 goals last season in the French league in 20 starts. Now, if he's going to start for Leeds, it's a cheap option into the Leeds defence for 4 million. Of course, we're all going to pretty much have one 4 million defender in our team. So I think Gabriel Gudmundsson is definitely one to consider at that kind of price. But now it's definitely worth noting, as I say, he's not guaranteed to play because he's a new signing for Leeds. There's also, if you wanted to go for a Leeds centre-back or Leeds defender, that's absolutely nailed on at £4 million. That is absolutely Joe Rodon. There's the centre-back. I think he played every single game last season for Leeds at centre-back in the Championship. So I expect him to keep his place in the starting 11 going into the next season. There's also Biol as well, who is also £4 million, who we're expecting to start as well. So there is 3 £4 million Leeds defenders which we're expecting to start. If you want to go for kind of the riskier shout, which I think is Gudmundsson, obviously with him being a fullback, getting forward a bit more, can play left wing back as well. I think that's a great shout. But if you want to go for 100% nailed, it's just go for Joe Rodon. But if you're feeling adventurous, we've not got him in our £4.5 million defender selections. But I do think the best one in terms of attacking output and nailed on as well is Jayden Bogle, who last season in the Championship got a lot of goal contributions at £4 million, £4.5 million. Could be a cheap way into that Leeds defence as well. A cheap defender, definitely a cheap option if you wanted to go for him. But I do think there is better 4.5 million options, but it's definitely worth saying him as a note as well. But I think Gudmundsson at £4 million has potential to be decent. Now, another one that I wanted to discuss was someone who's very, very nailed on, and this is Maxime Stev of Burnley. Again, £4 million, so he's the cheapest defender you can get. And if you're talking about someone that's absolutely nailed in his side, then Maxime Stev is definitely that guy. He played pretty much every single game for Burnley last season. He started all 46 matches for Burnley. It wouldn't be surprised if he played every single minute of last season for Burnley. A real good centre-half, by the way. Burnley last season as well, it's worth noting, literally conceded like 14 goals or something over the course of the Championship season. They had a record-breaking defence. Now, of course, in the Premier League, it's going to be completely different in the Premier League. You know, they're not going to be able to keep anywhere near as many clean sheets as what they did in the Championship. But it is worth noting they are pretty solid at the back, and they were in the Championship. So are they going to be absolute walkovers like some of the other newly promoted teams? Maybe not so much in terms of goals conceded. And Maxime Stev could get a lot of clearance points as well with him being a centre-half. You saw players like Wout Fast get quite a few points from defensive clearances. You saw players like Bednarek, who are obviously typically players we would never ever even go anywhere near in FPL. But then you've got a player like Maxime Stev, who we expect to get quite a few clearances, obviously, in defensive contributions in general. He should be quite high up on that with Burnley, with us expecting Burnley to have a lot of defending to do. And as well as that, Burnley being pretty solid in the back in the Championship. As I say, we can't really take that into the Premier League, but it's definitely better than being solid in the Championship than not. So definitely someone to keep an eye on, and I think he's a really good option in terms of 100% nailed and playing for a team which we do expect to concede goals. But as I say, it's £4 million. It's going to be your 5th choice defender. I think he's a safe option to go for, and there is some decent fixtures in there where you could potentially play, against the other newly promoted sides. So I don't think it's a bad option for Maxime Stev in going for that as a £4 million defender. Another £4 million defender I do like is Reinildo. Now, he's not absolutely nailed on to start, I wouldn't say. Obviously, he's coming in from Atletico Madrid. He didn't play too much for them in the last season. Now, we expect him to slot in at left back at Sunderland. They've currently got an injury to Dennis Sirkin. And he can also play centre-back as well a little bit, but I do expect him to play in that left-back role. Now, as I say, I don't think he's 100% nailed as like an Esteve who played every minute last season. I don't think he's as nailed as like a Joe Rodon as well. But I do quite like the option of Ronaldo. And obviously, Sunderland have splashed the cash in the transfer window. you never know, they might be decent. They've got some really good fixtures to start the season as well. And as I say, as a fifth defender who's 4 million, I think Reinildo could be a decent shout. I do just prefer the other ones just because they're a little bit more nailed. And as far as the pick that's a little bit more out there is Aiden Heaven of Manchester United. Now, he's been priced at 4 million, obviously started a few games towards the back end of the season. United fans thinking he can maybe slot in. Obviously, they play 3 centre-backs, so Ruben Amorim's got he's got a bit more opportunity, Aiden Heaven, as with, an extra centre-back slot being open. Now, United, of course, do have a few options at centre-back, as we know. But United fans are really raving about Heaven. And at some point, I don't think maybe for game week 1, I wouldn't put him in straight away. But, there could be a time where he can slot into that Manchester United team. And maybe if they have a decent fixture run at some point in the season, as a 4 million cheap way in on maybe a wild card or something later down the line, if he is getting regular minutes and regular starts, I don't think he's a bad option at all. But if I was to say my number one £4 million defender, for me, I've currently got Maxime Esteve in my team personally just because I know he's 100% nailed. If he's not going to transfer away from Burnley, I absolutely know he's going to play and I don't have to worry about that. And it's one of them where Burnley are terrible at the start of the season, even if they are conceding a lot of goals. He's not going to lose his place because he's that good. If you watch him in the Championship, in my opinion, he was the best player in the Championship last season. So he would never lose his place in that Burnley team unless he's injured. So for me, Esteve is the number one £4 million defender. Now moving on to the 4.5 million defenders, there's some decent options here as well. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is the most popular out of the lot so far, and I can understand why, with West Ham having a really nice fixture run at the start of the season. Sunderland on the opening game, and it's a decent run in the opening 6 overall for West Ham. You can kind of bring him in and out of the side of Wan-Bissaka at that £4.5 million price point. You're not going to be starting him week in, week out. You definitely can do, and I do think he's definitely a player that can be considered for that. But obviously with him being a more valuable option, you can definitely bring him in and out of the team on the fixtures that you do like. So as I say, good run at the start of the season. Very good going forward he has been for West Ham, especially in the back end of the season under Graham Potter. Was really decent going forward. So I do think he's a good option for FPL managers. At 4.5 million, I think he's a bit of a no-brainer. I think he is going to be the most popular 4.5 million defender going into the new season in terms of that. As far as other options as well, I think it's worth talking about Maxime de Kuiper because he's actually got some really good attacking numbers. Now, he signed from the Belgian league, I believe, where he actually got 8 goal contributions in 34 games. So he was really impressive going forward. Scored 9 goals over off Club Brugge, 55 games in 23-24 season, 5 goals and 11 assists. He's consistently put up numbers, you can see here, where you think this guy could really be a good option in terms of our FPL team. Now, we expect him to start because Estupinian looks to be on his way from Brighton, looks to be him to be getting moved on. They've signed de Kuiper, and I do think he should be coming in as that Brighton left back. And as I say, with them attacking numbers, it almost feels like it's too good to be true in terms of how cheap he is at 4.5 million. So he could really be one to watch. Definitely one to keep an eye on in pre-season. The fixtures for Brighton aren't bad at the start of the season. Fulham, Everton, Fulham, Everton, Man City, Bournemouth, and then Tottenham. It's not a bad run. Again, at 4.5 million, you can kind of bring him in and out of the team for the fixtures that you do like. So I actually do think Maxime de Kuiper could be a really good option. And if he plays a lot of minutes in pre-season, there's no doubt for me he's going to be very, very popular. And if he's played a lot in pre-season, he probably will be in my team, to be honest. So 2 other options that I wanted to talk about. Ezri Konsa is very popular as well because Aston Villa have a really nice fixture run at the start of the season, and again at that £4.5 million price point. We saw that Unai Emery is a big fan of Ezri Konsa. He got a lot of minutes last season and was kind of the main starting centre-back for Aston Villa. And with them fixtures at the start of the season, Newcastle, Brentford, Palace, Everton, Sunderland, he can, again, just slot in the team for the good fixtures, bench him on the fixtures that you don't want, and I think at 4.5 million could provide really good value. And another one that I want to talk about was Destiny Udogie, who is playing now in a Thomas Frank system, which obviously Thomas Frank is a bit more pragmatic, I think it's fair to say, than an Ange Postecoglou. Definitely is more adaptable to, even though, Ange Postecoglou did adapt in the Europa League final, we'll give him credit there, but in terms of Premier League, definitely, Thomas Frank's very adaptable in terms of the opposition he's playing, and I think Spurs, actually, if you look at their personnel at the back, it's actually a decent back line. They've got Romero, Van der Ven, Pedro Porro's decent, I think, as well, and Udogie. It's a solid back four, despite the numbers last season for Spurs not being too solid. But you got to hope with the appointment of Thomas Frank, he can kind of improve Spurs as collectively, defensively. And he's quite popular at the moment, 10% owned. And I don't blame FPL managers because Spurs have a good run of fixtures at the start of the season. A really nice home game against Burnley, first game of the season. Can get contributions going forward. And as well as that, of course, we expect them to be a little bit more solid defensively. So I do like the options there. But honestly, I think Wan-Bissaka's good. I think all three of them are good. I like Udogie. For me personally, I like Wan-Bissaka the most. I think De Kuyper is definitely one to watch. He'd probably be my number 2. And then I'll probably go Ezra Konsa number 4. But I don't think all of them options, whoever you wanted to choose, I think are really good, valuable options. And I think they're all going to be very popular. And it's kind of up to you who you want to kind of pick out of those players. But I think they're the best ones in my opinion. At 5 million, it's a bit of an awkward price point where, you're spending a decent amount on them, but do you really want to spend that much on them? Do you know what I mean? When you've got these 4.5 options that I just mentioned before. But we've got 2 options here. Very popular from last season because they were they were underpriced really at 4.5 million. At the start of the season, Anthony Robinson. We know how good he is going forward. Chipped in with a lot of assists last season for Fulham. And Fulham are a decent defensive outfit as well. I'd say they're nothing more than less. They're a decent Premier League defensive outlet. And as well as that, then, of course, Anthony Robinson has got them attacking contributions that he got last season. And you know what you're going to get from Anthony Robinson at the end of the day. The fixtures are kind of a mixed bag. I think Brighton's not bad. United's not bad. Chelsea away isn't great. But then Leeds and Brentford are decent. So it's not a bad first 5, to be fair, for Fulham. And as I say, you know what you're going to get with Anthony Robinson. We've seen it for a few seasons now where this guy puts up consistent numbers and he's a good defender to own in FPL. And he can always get them attacking contributions. So I do think Anthony Robinson is definitely decent at £5 million. Now, there's also Ola Aina as well, who, of course, was very popular last season. I remember bringing him in at 4.4 million when he dropped in price. And he was he was a big reason why I finished as high as I did in the end because Ola Aina, a defence, was so consistent for such a number of weeks. What was it? Forest get the most clean sheets in the Prem last season. They were definitely up there. And as well as that, he chipped in with a couple of goals and attacking contributions as well. And Nottingham Forest are a very, very solid team defensively. Now, will they be the same next season? I do expect them to kind of drop off and not be as high up as what they were for the majority of the season. But you look at their defence, you've got Nico Williams, you've got Murillo and Milenkovic, which is a solid centre-back partnership. And then you've got Ola Aina at right-back. And then as well as that in goal, then you've got Sells. You've got still a very solid backline, which is going to be kept together, you'd imagine, going into the new season. So I think Ola Aina is definitely a good option. At £5 million, you can always chip in with them attacking contributions. I don't know if he'll be as good as last season, but I still think he's a very good option in my opinion. And the 5.5 million option that I've gone for is actually Daniel Munoz. We saw how good he was going forward last season, in that kind of spell from game weeks 20 to game weeks 30 odd, just before it got to that double game week stage. Daniel Munoz was absolutely cooking. This guy was getting returns every single week, it felt like. If it wasn't an attacking contribution, he was getting a clean sheet. And Palace are going to be decent defensively, I'd imagine, again next season. They're still going to have, if they keep Mark Gay, of course, it's very, very important. They do go ahead and do that. But Palace were very solid last season, especially in that second half of the season. And as well as that, Munoz is just so good going forward. He gets forward so often. And he's such a threat. This guy literally gets up with the strikers. That's how far forward he gets. And he's such an exciting player to own. I feel like people might get put off him at the start of the season because he is, he's 5.5 million instead of 5 million. He's a little bit more expensive now. And people obviously want to get kind of other premium players in. But I don't think you can overlook him when you look at his attacking contributions. And I think another reason why people might be put off by him is because they played Chelsea on the first game of the season. First 3 games aren't exactly the best, Chelsea, Forest and Aston Villa, it's not ideal. From game week 3 onwards, you got Sunderland and West Ham. Definitely one that should be on everybody's radar, and I really do think he shouldn't be overlooked, and I think he personally is getting a little bit overlooked. And as far as £6 million defenders go, I think Gabriel, of course, is always going to be a good option. He's got that attacking threat from set pieces. We know Mikel Arteta and the set piece coach loves their corners. Now, the fixtures for Arsenal aren't great at the start of the season. They got United, Liverpool and Man City all in the first 3. You can argue United's actually a good fixture at this point, to be fair, with Leeds and Nottingham Forest. Now, but we know with Arsenal, they had the best defensive numbers in terms of XG last season. And Gabriel, he missed a spell with an injury, of course, which wasn't ideal. But hopefully he'll be fit and ready to go for the new season. And I think he's definitely always an option in FPL. And he's one of them players that he can destroy rank, this guy, because a lot of people own him. Again, he's 27% owned. He's always so popular. And if you don't have any Arsenal defenders and Gabriel's there, and Arsenal are doing what they've done over the last couple of seasons, which is keep clean sheets consistently, and for Gabriel getting a few attacking returns, it can be big red arrows pretty quick for a player like Gabriel. And, there were spells where other people I remember last season that didn't own him were getting punished, and he was so frustrated not to own. But then when you did own him, it felt like he was just conceding 1 goal every game and being a little 2-point merchant. But he's one of them players that can actually, he can get some real big hauls if he gets himself a goal, clean sheet and all through bonus. You're looking at a 15-pointer. And Gabriel, you don't put it past him to go and do something like that. The guy can punish people, even though he's a centre back. And then we've also got Josko Vardio as well, which I think There's 8 Nori as well. Now, 8 Nori, if he's 100% nailed, is obviously the standout at 6 million for me. You know, he's got them attacking contributions. If he was doing it for Wolves, he can do it for Man City. I think he already picked up an attacking contribution in pre-season as well. Oh, it might have been in the Club World Cup, sorry. But, yeah, Gvardiol I think is a bit more nailed. You know, he can play at left back, obviously, if 8 Nori is not there. And then he also can play at centre back as well. I'm just not convinced of 8 Nori is he going to get all their minutes straight away after signing, because Pep's kind of a bit strange with his new signings. So Gvardiol is like, you know what you're going to get. But then attacking contribution-wise, you know, if Gvardiol is playing at centre-back, yes, he's still a little bit of a threat from set pieces in that, but he's nowhere near the threat of what an 8 Nori is if 8 Nori is in the pitch, because we saw how you know, offensive he was when he played for Wolves last season, and he's a very exciting player to own. But I think Gvardiol, just for the safety at the start of the season, might be the way to go. But that's not ruling out 8 Nori at all, because I'm definitely considering him for my team as well. So let me know what you think of that in the comment section down below. If you've watched this point, please do hit that subscribe button. You know, if you're an FPL fan and you've watched this point, you may as well hit that subscribe button. We do daily FPL content. Also, drop a like as well if you did enjoy the video. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you in the next one.